Aren't we all? So am I,
Yeah.
after all these years. We all have to be good at the job. So this is
Right, yeah.
our ancient guest, Jeffrey Umberger. I'm really excited to have you. And before I get into you really giving your knowledge to everyone, the intention of this, I know there are people on this call who are already doing voiceovers and people who want to start in voiceover. So everyone starts someplace. So when you start, you have to, of course, learn the technique. It's very nuanced. So you want to learn the basics. Then you want to advance. If you mute yourself, Genevieve, because every time you clear your throat, you come on the.
Sorry.
That's okay. Then you want to start getting stronger and start knowing what your voice is. And then eventually you want to get to advanced, where you know the branding, you can analyze a script, you know how they're branding a certain script and how your voice fits into this. So that's the basic path. At that point, if you're fortunate enough, you'll get an agent. And I just want to start out, we see there's voiceover work all the time, and certainly with what's going on now, even before the on-camera very quickly started to change, and now they're having people even on camera, they're sending, once you book something, they're sending a camera kit to your home and directing you how to use the camera. But even before that started, I noticed a couple of days after we were all homebound, voiceovers, new voiceovers were voicing existing spots, and they just changed the voiceover. But we'll get into all of that with Jeffrey. I do want to start out by showing you a spot. It's one of my favorite voiceovers right now, and it definitely answers several. I think there are a lot of lessons in this spot. One is any kind of voice can do voiceovers. What you have to do is really, really connect. And it does take, to connect, it takes acting, some kind of acting. So I just want to share the screen and play part of this spot, because it's a voice, I think, where you'd say, what? You know, that voice can do voiceovers? So let me share this and just look how beautiful it is and how connected this particular person is. So I'm going to share the screen right now. Share screen. And this should be it. Here you go.
And then we smile at all our friends. Even when I'm weak and I'm breaking, I start weeping at the train station, 'cause I can see your faces. There is so much peace to be found in.
I'll stop it there.
Oh my gosh.
That is
Right?
beautiful. Wow. Hello. What an opener. And you're, it's incredible. I haven't seen that.
It's one of the first new ones that I did see. So that spot has empathy, and I feel it has, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's something positive about it. And in the really tough times that we're all going through and all these people are going through, there is community and there's hope. Where someone else sent me a spot and I thought it was, this spot is on target. Someone else sent me a spot where I thought was so off target because it was bright colors. It was almost like a Target spot. You know, it was shiny, squeaky, people romping around separately, of course, with bright colors. And it was all about, you know, what we can learn out of this. But I felt the tone was wrong. So as a voiceover artist, you are assisting, if it's TV, you're assisting the picture with a certain tone. If it's radio, you're totally painting the picture. So I think I'd like to open it up to Jeffrey and maybe tell us a little bit where you'd like to start, or would you like to start with what's going on now? Let me just, I'm sorry, I keep, so as a voiceover, you can get your work several ways. Through a casting director, and when I get the work, I speak to the people directly who hires you, and they give me the breakdown and the characteristics of the breakdown. Then I release it to agents such as Jeffrey. Jeffrey and agents will submit their ideas to me with links to a little demo of yours that they have on their agency file. And then I give appointments, whether it be coming to my office or whether home reads. Another way that you get a lot of appointments, most of them now, is it doesn't go through a casting director. Voiceover agents like Jeffrey have very strong relationships with the ad agencies and whoever else is going to be giving out breakdowns. So they receive the breakdowns, then they give the breakdown to their clients. The clients home read, send the reads into Jeffrey, and he can tell you how he decides what's a good read or not. And then there are certainly, right now, what's going on, there's so many opportunities in voiceover in that a lot of times on camera breakdown services such as Breakdown Express and casting networks, there'll also be voiceovers thrown in there. So many agencies now say they have, quote unquote, a voiceover department, because they'll send their, you know, they'll have their clients read and send them out. And then there are these pay to play, when you don't have an agent, pay to play websites in the voiceover industry. So Jeffrey, take it over. Time.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for giving to the community like you are right now, Terry. And it's so important for someone like you who has, you know, the whole rounded picture of the experience of this business. I know you've been on the advertising side, and your casting side is enormous because of your eye and your ear. And I think everybody should, you know, give a round of applause for you and for all you're doing. So thank you for this. And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. And I'm glad to see, number one, that it's so popular and filled and sold out, so to speak. That's a testament that everyone is available, which is good, and home and interested, and hopefully safe. So definitely we are seeing a huge difference in the way talent receive auditions, how they audition, where we get our auditions from is changing. I mean, it had already, of course, started to change because of the digital nature of the business. So I can be in Atlanta, work for a national agency, provide opportunities for the national roster from Atlanta and the region, just as I can put people in front of opportunities that come from the nation in this market. So we're all for one and one for all, or I guess you might say right now, we're all in the same equalized boat, but there is sort of a shift in how we receive auditions. We're still receiving from some casting directors. We're still receiving directly from advertising agencies, from production companies, from freelance producers, content providers, and project managers, and sound studios, believe it or not, those that are sort of on the fringe of this business right now because they've been pushed out because everyone is from home. Sound studios are figuring out what to do with the kicked over anthill, and they are providing casting or becoming more producer than they used to be. And it's really what we're finding right now, just in the very thick of this moment, is that everyone must at least have a Source Connect set up, not Source Connect now, but a Source Connect Standard or Source Connect Pro. And that they have to be able to handle a session. That it's not just enough that they be connected to and their studio sound great. I'm not talking about a $30,000 studio, but a nice return sound. But I'm also talking about how you will have to sort of be the engineer. You have to run a session. So this is your learning curve, but it's also your business, and it's part of how your business is shaping right now. And all of you obviously have found a way to make it work in your own way. And thankfully, Source Connect is not an expensive way, thank God, because I know a lot of people are not receiving the income they might have been a few months ago. But right now, the thick of our business is COVID response ads or jobs that were already in the can that were going to be needing voiceover anyway, or jobs that don't require anyone to be on a set, and voiceover can be the entire voice of a spot. There's always training videos to voice that can be done over graphics, so there's not an entire cast of people on camera. So we're sort of, in a lucky part of the business where we haven't, I mean, it's slower, I should say, but we've maintained business. I mean, I had, at the apex of this last month, I was in the middle of an NCAA booking it was a national booking for the NCAA. And literally the day that we were scheduled for him to do the VO, they just pulled all the plugs on all basketball, March Madness and everything. And of course, that's the way you'd expect it to be, but that got filled in. And I think, if it's quick enough, maybe March Madness can come back into May Madness, or I think we are already in madness of any sort, but hopefully what we're noticing is that there's a fast response for this situation we're in. And I think once the ship gets righted, I think the rush back as things start to open back up, the advertising for those businesses to open back up is going to be even more fierce and a little more robust than what this has been. So it's, I don't want to put the wrong words out that we're thankful, but we are thankful that it hasn't completely bottomed out. We are still busy. Nationally, locally, regionally, it's all still sort of happening in its own way, thank God. So that's a start of it anyway.
So I just explained very quickly a path that someone has to take, which is, first of all, they have to know their technique. They have to know how to approach a script, analyze a script, know what their voice can do, direct themselves, and be able to have someone else direct them too. There's a certain time where you guys have to get a demo together. You don't want to do that too quickly. you don't want to do it before you're ready, because anyone can edit together a demo for you, edit, but it's not what you can do. So you're not doing yourself a favor, because, and I've had the experience where it was the type of job, it was non-union, it was very, very real sounding. Someone in the studio that I work out of, Castaway Studios, said, oh, I know, they knew what I was casting. I have a friend, can I send you over his demo? And they sent it over and he sounded great. And I actually had him, I was having a casting session in my office and I had him come in. He was shaking, sweating. He couldn't get through the script. My session director, buzzed me afterwards. I was in my office. I could hear and see everything, actually. And, who is this person? We can't submit him. And I said, oh, his reel sounded really good. And then I happened to speak to him afterwards. He had emailed me something and I said, what happened at your audition? He said, I've never done anything before. I really didn't know what I was doing. Someone put together a reel for me. So it's not going to do you any good. First of all, I'm not interested in him ever again. And he took a spot away from someone else. He didn't do himself a favor, and he certainly didn't do us a favor. So don't have a reel made before you know how to approach a script, analyze a script, know your voice, know how to direct yourself, and know what to do when someone else directs you.
Yeah.
So at the time that how do you find people, and do you listen to reels, or like what makes you interested in someone?
Well, there's several layers to that. It's going to be the voice first. So a demo does help, or at least audio sound clips. Sometimes the demo process can be a partnership with your representation. So let's say that I find Jane Doe very exciting, her voice is perfect, and she doesn't yet have a demo. It would be something that I could tailor a demo toward our buyers, and we have a hand in the demo process with that actor. So it's not always incumbent upon them to have a specific, a polished demo. Sometimes that can be something we can both work on together to make it really work for the person. But a demo is a good starting point. It is basically it's your business card for voiceover, and so we start there. We have a very tight, with ACM Talent, it is a management company who takes on talent who are pretty much established, and with maybe William Morris or CESD or DPN, anyone, they're working talent, and we sort of bring them in when they're golden in one thing and try to help them become golden in 5 other things that they might not have the opportunity to. So we mushroom something that's already there. So in our case, we are listening to demos and we're seeing a sort of a profile of what that actor's life is right now. What is the state of that state for that actor? So the actor would say, I'm repped by, or I don't have rep, but I'm good, and I have somehow found great work for myself, and here's what I earn. Can we triple that? At a regular talent agency, a talent agent might be listening online to demos that you've posted. If you're active on social media saying that you've begun the voiceover steamroll, you have audio clips out there that someone like me could listen to. I say, hey, I think you're raw. I think your talent is, it sounds like it's very promising. It's of a sound that seems to be booking right now as a trend. Who are you studying with? And that's the bottom line, is you really do have to study. And I think on-camera acting is very important, theater acting, most importantly, improv acting is very important for a VO actor, because you have to develop so much of a story just with your voice, and sometimes just in our closets at home. So you have to do a lot of acting with voiceover. It is definitely an acting career. So find yourself, alongside this VO world in an improv class with someone that you really trust. Anyone that Terry, Berland would recommend. You're golden to go with that person. She's not advertising anyone who is money grubbing for just coaching anyone. They are established and reliable resources for studying acting, and get a good VO coach. Take a beginner class, take an intermediate class, stay with it for a while and see where the trends of people's comments about your voice are. You'll hear feedback, delivery. It's important that you play your audio files that you either come up with yourself or something you might have booked for friends who know you, and they'll say, that sounds way different than you. Then you might think, I might not be being genuine in my delivery, and it's going to be hard to replicate. Or you hear people that have never heard you before give comments and feedback on you, and they start to say things that are alike in theme, like you sound reassuring, you sound old, you sound young, you sound trusting, you sound erratic. There we go. So you'll begin to take notes and understand across, because it's very hard for us to hear ourselves the proper way. Others always hear us way better than we do, usually for the better. We're usually harder on ourselves than we need to be.
Can I interject?
Yes.
This was a couple of years ago, and I was hired to cast a huge account, and they didn't want anyone polished, and they gave me the characteristics of the voice, the sound of the voice. And so one of my favorite things always, I go to theater a lot, and I know people from on camera, is to pick really, really good actors. When they say, he shouldn't sound like a voiceover person. Anyway, but agents know that now too. So they take on people who don't sound polished too. So my whole casting session was pretty well filled up with agent submissions. But I threw like 4 people in who did not have a voiceover agent. This one actor booked it. It was a huge account. He went to the first recording. It was starting out with 15 spots. It was union, national network. I get a call after the recording session, and I said, they said to me, he couldn't take our direction. He eventually took the direction, but I think we're going to have to recast. So I said, oh my goodness. So they said, we just wanted to warn you, just a heads up. We're going to see on this end what we're going to do. Meanwhile, he was with a boutique agent, a boutique on-camera agency who also had a boutique voiceover department. So after he booked this, I called the voiceover department, and we all know each other, by the way. You can see we have relationships. Relationships are really, really important for you, for us, for everyone. It's a relationship business. And I said, I just want you to know that one of your on-camera people booked this. You might want, if they haven't told you yet, you might want to call them into your voiceover department. He did call this actor in, and without me knowing it, because this agent was very, very wise, he said to this actor, I want you to quickly grab some private lessons and find out what you're doing, because you were really lucky to get this. That was before the call came in. So he was lucky once. Then I got a call back from the agency. They had 8 more spots to do. And they said he was lucky a second time. They said, you know what? We're going to try him again. We really like his voice. So meanwhile, because of his agent's recommendation, and he's smart, he respects that you need to know what you're doing. He had taken these privates with someone, he went in the second time for the second round of spots, and he did just great. So he kept
Wow.
out.
Gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
And that makes a team of people like you and his agent, he's seeing the good and taking the chance too. Uh, and I think more importantly, the bottom line is that everyone said, go find out what you're doing. Go find out how to do it well.
So
And that's
I'm going to put a plug in. Saturday, Nick Omana and I have a core basic kickstart workshop that's online. And there's workbooks, and you learn the technique, and you find out from all day long. We're going to do it online. There's like 4 spots left. And you will get, I'm giving out these free community tips and chats. It's what I want to do now. We are community. But then again, there are people who have the means and don't want to stop moving forward because they don't have to. So if you have the means and you are looking to get in, you can go to terryberlandworkshops.com, and you'll see, you can go onto voiceover and you'll see core kickstart. Anyway, it was a perfect place to put a little plug.
Yeah. Yeah, and I applaud you for partnering with Nick. He's great too. So that's going to be I'm sure that'll be very satisfying and really learn a lot. And do you do that at Castaway Studios? Well, no, you can't do that now.
But now we're doing it online. We have an advance that we're going through right now, where in the advance we go through branding, just what you said. So after each person's read, and they know themselves by the time they get to advanced, they write down their strongest characteristics. And then during the week, we have them collect visuals with the colors that represent the strongest characteristics of their voice, and visuals that represent the characteristics of their voice. So it's a branding and demo prep, but that's advanced.
Wow.
I did get a question that says, what kind of equipment? I'm just getting in, what kind of equipment? So we will ask Jeffrey that, but I just want to make sure that you're not running out and getting equipment before you're ready to give a good read. So why not, since this question was asked, do you want to give some advice about what kind of equipment people can use in the beginning from their home?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent question and a great note not to do too much right now until you really are. You don't want to put the cart before the horse, as it's said. And you do need to, you need to study first, but getting a microphone, in this day and age, it needs to be a pretty good condenser microphone for auditioning. So we'll call it an audition microphone. And there's a $13 pop filter that sits in front of it, so your plosives or your P sounds aren't popping. And a stand, which is $30, which will outlive all of us unless you move the stand around a lot. So really for about $70, you can get a starter. I have a mic, I have a pop filter, I have a stand, I have a big closet that I can walk into with clothes padding it. So there's your start to at least be able to practice and to send out audio clips from that sound pretty decent. A CAD microphone is a condenser microphone that I think you can buy in a kit, usually with the stand, the microphone, and maybe the pop filter for under $100, I think. If you look up CAD condenser mic, that's a great starter one. Sometimes you don't necessarily want a microphone that sits on a desktop or on the top of a desk, literally, because it might pick up vibration. It's tricky. But if you are on a cruise ship, well, you're not going to be on a cruise ship. If you're going to be somewhere away from home, you can take this kind of microphone and place it on a pillow. There's no end to where you begin to start, where you begin to make your sound a quality sound. You just don't want to necessarily rely on it being an iPhone or Apple technology, just an iPad. I've booked people off an iPad audition those or an iPhone audition because that, a lot of actors that we represent are also on-camera people and they only have what they have on set. So we've grabbed them for a moment, they've auditioned, and then they've booked from whatever they had. Your talent will bleed through, but in general, for under $100, you should be set up for an audition quality mic. And sometimes that mic can help you through a job that's an industrial training video that will never see broadcast, but is clear enough to be used for that, and you can record from home. I do feel that you should stop there until you've completed training and you have feedback on where you need to work more on, or what your veins of gold. My acting teacher used to say, your vein of gold is, and she would fill in the blank for all of us what she felt was what we were strong in doing well, and then what we needed to work on. So until you figure all of that out, don't go beyond this type of setup for getting started with a microphone. But also, don't sell yourself short with anything kind of less than that. Don't buy, to me, I think there's some, I know that they're popular. There's the Globe mics. As long as it's directional, sometimes with the Globe mics, it's picking up sound, bouncing off walls all around. Even if it's in a small closet, it can give you return echo, and it can make it sound like you're in a tin can or something. And that's not something you really want to be putting out there too often. We need to hear the nuance of your voice, not an echoey version of it. We need to hear when your voice cracks, or if it has some depth, or, if you're working as a VO actor to give your voice those nuances of heartfelt, let's say, or compassion, or whatever it may be, sometimes your microphone can just sort of glaze over that, and we've missed that you had that and that you tried to deliver it. But so that's why you really want to pay less than, 70.
I have two questions with that. Number one, the mic stand that you're talking about, is it a tall mic stand so the people can stand up, or is it on a desktop?
It's adjustable, so you could sit. If you're doing an audiobook, you pretty much are going to sit for the whole thing and put a pillow above your belly so your hunger pangs aren't hurt. So the stand is sort of, it would be good for all of us sitting down right now, right in front of it still kind of needs to come down at us, basically. Or sometimes it is okay to speak down into a mic, but as long as it's a condenser mic that is directional, that's the important thing. But yes, this stand that I am speaking of, I think it came from a Guitar Center, which I'm not sure if is a national chain, but any kind of rock and roll store where a basic mic stand is there, it can adjust and be above you or with you sitting.
Because I find that your voice is your instrument, and you need to orchestrate your instrument. And when you're sitting down, you're cut off.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you come in to audition for me, we would never have you sitting.
Right.
You want the energy to be able to flow in your body. You want to be able to move a little bit. I say a little bit because you don't want to be knocking the stand or having any of those kind of sounds. So, and I would like to add that when I get home read submissions in from the agents or from you guys directly, it's so competitive, and there are so many people who know already what we're telling you. We're telling you how to be the most competitive, the best of the best. And as Jeffrey said, it's, he's not even giving you high cost for it. That if there's a lot of echo, if it sounds like you're in a tin can, I won't submit you because there are too many other people who are really, really good. And take direction. There's a lot of direction that's given you. We give it to Jeffrey, or his other producers give it to him, like, give us 2 takes. Just say take 2 on the second take. Don't slate your name. When you put your name, they'll even go as far as on the MP3, well, send MP3s, put your name, space, dash. They'll go that far because after there's an organization that you have to fit into. So don't take that lightly. I'm a blog writer for Backstage. They call them industry experts, and I'm one on voiceover for Backstage. And my last blog was about 4 ways that you can be sure that a sure chance that you have for your home read to be submitted. And it, is about taking direction.
Well, it can kick your great audition out. Because a lot of times, like you, Terry, you don't have the time to fix them yourself, or take a slate off or edit it off. And so because of time, the advertisers are waiting on them. They're not waiting on us to fix what you probably missed because the talent probably missed because you do have to be fast these days. You sort of everything is sort of last minute, same day rush type stuff. And so you get caught up in that, and it's very easy to say, I'm just going to send it, and I'm sure this is at least going to be good. But it has to be as it's put. Those aren't protocols because we want to trick you. It's protocols because we've been demanded them from our buyers, or it can kick something out of a system and not see your name or whatever. It's a very specific thing, and it happens at all levels of talent. I can tell you that. And it doesn't, once you become a 6-figure talent and you're booking every day, it can still and does still happen to those. It's mainly because they're caught up in focusing on something that they didn't get the ducks in a row. And but it is ultimately important, because no matter how good someone is, if it's not correct, we kind of can't send it forward, and that really does put you out. You've done a lot of work. Too bad to not be able to go in because you didn't do the naming protocol right. Or that you just don't your sound is not good.
Yeah, because you said something interesting, which we take for granted, but someone might not. If you're just starting out, they might say, what did he say? Because you said, go in your closet. And so Jeffrey was referring to, it's pretty soundproof. You need to absorb the air, and so there's not a lot of bouncing or echo. So a closet is one place that would be a very good place. Like when I have people at this point, when I have people coming in to my actual audition studio, I say, thank you for coming out of your closet. Coming
Changes
in.
a lot of people's lives then.
So Jeffrey, someone's asking which version of Source Connect did Jeff recommend, standard, and what else?
Or Pro. And I would recommend standard to start with. Pro is great, but I think it's more pricey. Standard is what you need. You don't want Source Connect now. I think that's based, it allows sounds to drop out too often. So if you are really in a session and your sound, you might have heard us just today, how our sound comes and goes at times. That's what can happen with the lower end, with free version of Source Connect. When someone asks you if you have Source Connect, they are depending on you to have had standard or pro levels, because that is going to be less likely to drop your sound out, and you are producing the starting sound, which will end up on broadcast. And if it's missing the end of your word, there's no retrieving it. It doesn't go anywhere. It's gone. So Source Connect now, I think, is $35 a month, or I think you can pay $600 something for an all-out. I've bought it for as long as I live. And I don't know what Pro is. I think it's a couple of grand. I don't know, unfortunately, what you get with that to make it over and above worth more than $35 a month. I'm sure it's great, but I don't know why.
Yeah. And someone is asking, actually, Candice Coronado is asking, when you audition for commercial, the materials in Spanish, but the breakdowns in English, do you slate in Spanish or in English or both? I have an opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinion. My opinion is, if we're asking you to do it in Spanish, there are definitely Spanish, Hispanic, Latino people listening, and they're listening for your accents. And I would say use your Spanish accent because it's Spanish. It's a Spanish spot. What do you think, Jeffrey?
I think the same thing. Yeah, for people who are old enough to know about Sybil, the movie, we don't want to be too many personalities in an audition, because you really do have to brand it and nail it kind of quickly for them. And you don't want anyone to have to think, is she native Spanish or is she just very good at accents? And so you really want to be, if it's a Spanish spot, be Spanish that you are authentically, and let all accents, as Terry is saying, it's very important with accents, especially because your localization of your accent will be something that can book or not book it, depending on where the ad's going to run or who they're marketing to. So yeah, I think for your slates, it shouldn't be schizophrenic in that you are very unaccented for your name slate or your agency name, and then suddenly there is someone else there. Just in general terms, it's sort of that same way with animation sometimes, you know, or a character read. You don't want to be coming too far. They don't care that they know you're a good actor if they like your story delivery. They are not impressed that you can come in and out of accents unless you're maybe doing an audiobook and you have to be several different things.
And Marika is asking, I submit edited files, cutting out breaths and extra long spaces. I would say, well, first of all, you're correct. And here's a little voiceover tip, acting tip. The spaces, your pauses in voiceovers at commas and periods are much shorter and more condensed than in real life. So you better be able to read that way and not read your copy and then depend on editing out your spaces. You should be reading it with the proper flow without those spaces. So it gets back to, and if you have the habit of taking breaths that we can hear, you have to stop that and you have to learn a breathing technique. So I think, in my opinion, it goes back to what we were first talking about, where we mentioned don't over edit because you're not representing yourself properly. Would you like to add to that, Jeffrey?
I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. And it really is just a matter of what sounds human and what sounds edited, because they wonder what the heck you have taken out when they start hearing edits. They don't know. And that doubt can really take, if you're option A and B, the option B will get it over you being option A, because they don't know what edit heavy person is going to be coming in there and performing just based off an audition. But definitely a comma has its pause, and a period, as you say, has its proper pause. If you mess up, then you're naturally going to edit out a take, but it should never be something that sounds like it's been programmed or definitely hyper edited, because there's a lot of expression in sometimes in your lifts or your pauses between sentences. There's sometimes that's part of the story, is that you have to think, how about that? So you wouldn't want to edit out that space because that's part of the story. So, but it's sometimes when you're looking back on your graph or your Richter scale and you don't know what that, and your through line and your story arc or your message delivery has been sort of skewed. And definitely also, that's official wording. I think you shouldn't filter your reads too much. We recently had someone who was, the NCAA job I was telling you about, ironically, is present again, because he was booking that job basically from his audition. He has a really good home studio. I think all of our roster has an established home studio. So he was they were prepared to lift his audition because they directed him. And then he did it on his own. They gave him direction, let him go on his own, and they did a few takes. They loved the takes. They said, this seems fixed a little bit, enhanced, or the sound was fixed a little bit. He didn't save an original version. He fixed it and sent it. But that's his standards, not the buyer's or the client standards. And so there was no fixing it. You had to redo it, and you really run the chance that you didn't quite hit your golden delivery the second time. Not only are you sort of feeling bad that you might have done something that messed them up, then it's sometimes just hard to go back and grab it again. And so, but he did book it. He ended up booking, but that's sort of a lesson that if it's an audition, they don't want it to be broadcast quality. If they want it to be broadcast quality, they will usually say, we're going to use this potentially, but don't flavor it. So it's pretty important.
Great answer. We have about 20 more minutes. I'm going to open it up to questions. Before we do that, I'm going to put you all on gallery view, and let me ask you, give a shout out. You're from LA.
Oh, wow, a lot of LA.
I'm from LA.
Good.
living in
In LA.
I'm in LA.
In LA.
LA.
Originally from New York, but I'm in LA right now.
I'm in LA.
LA.
Give a shout out if
Central Oregon, anyway.
give a shout out if you're from Europe.
From where?
Europe.
Oh.
Sometimes I have London, and believe it or not, Peru.
I'm from New York.
I'm from France.
Shout out if you're from the East Coast.
I'm from the East Coast.
New York.
New York.
Yep.
New York.
Moved to LA from New York.
I'm from New York.
From New York, living in LA now.
Same thing.
To LA.
I'm from the East Coast, New Jersey originally, and Florida, and moved to Oregon.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to open it up to.
Southeast, Terry.
How much was the mic and the stand that you were talking about?
It's been a few years since I did recommend that mic, but I think the mic was $50. You could find it. I mean, once you put in the Google search for the CAD, C-A-D condenser mic, it came up available all around the globe for different rates. And I naturally bought the one, I was buying it for someone. I bought the one I think that was 55 at the time. It's been about 10 years. So it's going to be a little more expensive. And the stand I bought individually, I think that was $35. And the pop filter was $13. And then there was a cord that I elected to buy because that cord connected the bottom of the condenser mic, it connected it with a USB, cable. And I think that was, it was expensive where I bought it, but it was still maybe 25, something like $50. So I paid, $150, I think, total for that. But there are kits, and the kit that I mentioned is not what I bought. I bought everything a la carte, but there are kits with that CAD, or used to be offered with that CAD microphone, where you would have the CAD and the pop filter and the stand, and I think that was around 75 or 80. It was kind of under $100. So if you don't buy coffee 5 days from Starbucks, you'll have the money.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Indy.
Hey, just had a quick question about accents. I was in a couple of situations where they asked for authentic accents, which I provided, and then but I lightened it up just a little bit because I know that if I went too far, they probably wouldn't understand what I was saying. But the end result was they wanted me to dial it back even further. So I'm just trying to figure out how to walk out the gate, launch myself out the gate in a good place with it so that I'm still giving the authenticity, but at the same time, giving them what they need.
Can I ask, I'll let us both answer that. I know my clients specifically say to me, very, very light accent or not. So, you know, if it's coming from a casting director, you'll get more direct direction. Otherwise, I would say the rule of thumb is, which accent, by the way?
It was actually a couple of situations. Was a Jamaican, and the other was South African. But I was actually also doubling a voice for Usain Bolt for a spot.
Wait, what, did you do that for me?
No, it was actually, I did it when I was in New York. It was for Gatorade.
I know, because I cast.
Oh, well, maybe it's possible. It's possible, yeah.
I had to cast his voice for something. I actually don't remember the product.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I would say make sure you're understandable. So, and then give 2 or 3 takes, which brings up another, and then go a little bit heavier the second take.
Yeah.
And maybe a third take, if it's very short copy. If it's longer copy, by the way, I'll always ask for 2 takes. Some people will just ask for 1 take. If they don't specify, give 2 takes. In the beginning, when I was first starting to put out for home reads, self-submits, the first time or 2, I didn't tell, I just assumed they would give me 2 takes. So I didn't say anything. And the people who gave me only 1 take, or sometimes I ask for 2 takes and someone sends me 1 take and I say, why? In my head or out loud, I'll say to my system, this person just gave 1 take. Why would they do that? It's so stingy. And they're not taking the opportunity, unless it's very, very, very long copy. You want to give little variations. What do you
Can I give, yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. And Gilbert, I missed exactly what you said in the very beginning, but I know you were asked to do an accent. And specifically for a while, doing Jamaican accents, they almost wanted us to show their birth certificate. They didn't want us to submit anybody trying an accent with Jamaican, because it was so specific, and there's so many different kinds of accents. So it's great that it's a real commodity that you can do that. And as far as voice matching any celebrity, that's a whole part on someone's roster, just being able to do that if you do that really well. And authenticity, as Terry was saying, you know, and it doesn't quite matter the degree as long as it is authentic. Instead of saying, oh, I could do Jamaican, because so many people, regardless of color, age, race, say I can do Jamaican because they've heard it on a cartoon. And so that's what we have to stop. And that's what we wouldn't want to submit to Terry, because she'll see through it, and then she wouldn't want to send that to a buyer and offend them. So I just wanted to second that notion. And there was something else said, Terry, about the takes, the amount of takes. I also kind of wish for 2 takes. But a lot of people see 2 takes as doing it once and then doing it again just as well, and creating what's called a safety. But I think if you're going to ask for 2, I think, aren't you, it's possible, asking for something a little varied?
Yes, definitely. I don't want 2 of the same takes. It's really, unless it's comedy or radio, which is bigger, it would be very varied in a very nuanced kind of way.
Right. That's true too. It's not so broad.
Guys, do you know how to raise your hand electronically? Because we can do it that way.
Oh, no.
Maybe I have to do a setting where I allow you to.
You just have to go to participants.
Chat. If you go to chat, it'll
chat out participants. You can do it on participants too.
or click
more.
I don't see it. I have to learn that. I know there's some of these where they are raising their hands. Okay, so maybe Genevieve.
Okay. Hi, thanks for having me. So I got to the point where I made a voiceover demo, but I wasn't sure where to take it to the agency and like what they want in their submissions. Is it just the voiceover demo that I've created, or is there something, because I've taken like voice classes, I've taken voiceover classes, but I just don't know like what they want specifically, and I want to make sure that when I submit, I'm doing it right.
Well, it's very specific per agency, and usually it's spelled out on their submissions page what to send in and what not to send in, importantly, and then what to expect if you send it in. Sometimes, well, when I had Umberger Agency and I just ran it by myself, I had a submissions page and I said, send an MP3 to this email address. If you don't hear, it may be that we're not accepting now, but please try back again in 6 months if you don't hear, or 3 months, whatever it might be. Or I would say we're just not accepting anything right now, because I would try to keep a tight roster. So each agency or management company usually will spell it out because they want it to be clear so that you don't waste your time or that they receive things that they can't do anything with. And I think submissions in general should be personalized. Find out who it is exactly you're submitting to. Don't do dear sir or madam, or don't do a blind CC to a bulk number of agencies. We can always tell that, and that means that we don't have a partnership in mind based on your assumption. We have first come, first serve, or spaghetti sticking to the refrigerator that you're throwing. So it should be hi Jeffrey, or if you're submitting to whatever, hi Mary. I would like to submit my demo tape to you. There's absolutely nothing else that will flower it or make it stand out any better. But what you can include is your union affiliation, if you have one, or non-union, or your other rep, because it's possible to be multi-repped, but we want to know that going in. It can really flavor the submission process.
Okay. And what Jeffrey means by that is you can be repped in different states by different agencies. For instance, you can't have 2 voiceover reps in LA. You can't have 2 voiceover reps in Atlanta, but you could have LA, Atlanta, Salt Lake City. And I'm a little concerned about your question about what do agents want. Someone professional should be making your demo, and there's a certain time it should be. You should already have discovered your strengths. It should move along in clips. It should have music behind it, and it should be showing your strengths. So other than, and then it's you, it's yours, then submit it. You have to have a professionally, someone professional doing your demo. Who else? Let's see.
Yeah. I don't see raising a hand. I have a question.
Okay, whoever's saying that, go ahead. I'm not sure why we can't get little hands today.
If you go to the participants right next to it, you see the little hands.
I see
raised.
thumbs up and clapping. I can click one of those.
Oh,
right below it, yeah.
And here it is. Oh, here it is. Well, it says 3, but now where do I see who they are?
You see them
next to the hands should be the name.
Yeah, Terry, if you look at the participant list, there should be a blue hand next to, there's Phil Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Phil Foster. Thank you.
Hi guys, thanks for the meeting. I just had a quick question with regards to double takes submissions. Should we slate on each one? You said we're going to do different ones on. I mean, of course, you don't want the same submit or the same read on the second take, but do we slate it in the beginning for both takes, or do we slate between the takes?
I know when I give out directions, that will be, remember in the beginning I said the directions are very specific. I will say on your second take, do not slate your name, say take 2, or slate your name on the second take, take 2. I'll be specific. What do you, Jeffrey, if someone isn't specific, what are you suggesting to your clients?
If it isn't specific, then, you know, sometimes a front slate or just write out, you know, at the very beginning, your name, just your name. And not a lot of illustrative words like, hi, I'm so glad to read for you. My name is. It's just your name, and then you can say 2 takes. And also, you know, casting directors or producers can see the length of the audio graph, and they'll know that 2 takes are there because, you know, you've got a 15-second spot, and they can see that your take is 30 seconds, and they'll assume smartly that it's 2 takes. So if there's nothing there, just keeping it short and sweet, I would imagine, for you, Terry, having to go through so many submissions, the shorter, the sweeter, the better. But I think if you say 2 takes, then that's fine.
Yeah. Someone is not muted. Etiquette, guys, can you mute yourself, please? Ari?
Yes. Hi. I have a question. Oh, I hear someone in the background.
I'm gonna go see. It's L. I'm going to mute. Go ahead.
There we go. I have a question about transitioning from the dubbing world into, you know, other areas of voiceover. I've done a lot of Netflix shows that were either from Spain or Brazil, and I've done the English dubbing. Can I use any of that, I guess, footage, I guess you could say, in order to either get a new representation or perhaps use that as my demo reel in the meantime to showcase my voice? Or is it starting from scratch, or how do I make that transition, I guess?
Well, for me, you can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed that you've done dubbing because it is definitely a very controlled technique. Like, you have to be really good at it. If you actually go in the studio and you're passing each other, and you have to be able to take direction.
Mm-hmm.
Visuals. So I'm impressed with that, but it doesn't show me, it won't take, when you say start from the beginning, you already know what to do with your voice.
Sure.
So maybe you'd want to take advanced class because you already know what to do with your voice, just to get, you know, just to get a handle of it, and then make a demo from that. What do you think, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I agree, and I think the fact that, you know, as Terry is saying, it's great that you do that, and it's important to let people know that you have done that and made a living at it or earned money from it, or got booked a second time. So that's important to have, and you can have a dubbing reel and you can showcase it. It should be something to mention and tout and showcase. But it definitely wouldn't be what you would present to say, hey, what do you think? Because we would think highly that you can do it, just as Terry just said, but it wouldn't let us know what you can do in our day-to-day world.
Mm-hmm. So it would be essentially but doing a reel that's specific to either commercial or animation, but having that as to supplement the talent and so forth.
Yeah, it needs to definitely be known that you do that. That's a gift, and that's experience.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the dubbing reel. Do you use just this? I mean, then you would have to use the images for the dubbing reel, right? Like as if you would do not just an audio file, obviously, you would have to do a video image of it.
Yeah. We would want to know what your struggle was or what your ability to do something well over was. And so we'd have to
Gotcha.
visual.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Because now you threw in animation. So when you have a body of work that's narration, commercial, animation, you would have separate reels because and I could click on each reel, because if I'm looking for a certain feel and characteristic commercially, I don't want, like Jeffrey mentioned before, it's the short period of time that they give us to do things is brutal. So I get like right to it. So I'm not going to want to listen to 3 animation spots and then finally hear a commercial one, or not know where. It's a waste of my time.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. How do you say your first name?
REA.
REA.
Yay. Thank you.
Nick, NIK. Nick, N-I-K?
Hi, there I am.
Oh, good.
Hi, Terry. Thanks, Jeff. Pardon me. I'm out by the pool in my bikini, and I missed the beginning of the chat because the room was full. But I'm glad to jump in and hear what I've heard. I have a couple of little kind of combo questions. We're talking a lot about demo reels. In particular, at what point after having had a reel do you think it can, and this may just be case by case, when it becomes stale and time to update, drop certain characters off or drop other spots off and add new ones, or as the market changes? So I'd love if you could speak towards that. And then we were also talking a lot when I heard about the idea of multiple takes. Typically, I'll the way we do it at our agency is we'll just label it. It'll say 2 takes. The question I have, and again, this may be case by case, but especially when it comes to commercial reads, and Terry, maybe you could speak to this, is the idea of where sometimes the direction can be so, it almost is like, we get the same direction all the time. It's like, oh, don't push, no announcer, nothing, do nothing. And then, but sometimes, especially just like you said, like if it's radio, it's going to be louder, it's going to be bigger, it's going to be more fun. I guess my question is, sometimes my instincts want me to go to what I think would sound most natural, or like, stick to my guns for a spot and just lead with that take, and then have my second take be more in line with the direction given. I'm not sure if that makes sense or not, but
well, you've asked a lot of questions. If you're lucky enough to get a storyboard, let me show you one. Hold on. Whoops. Hold on a minute.
Where it has the audio and video on both sides.
And it shows you, then you can get your own hints from it. I had this folder up and now, oh, here it is. Just let me show you everybody a storyboard. So that, okay, as a when it goes through a casting director, when there's opposing, like it will, this has happened to me. There's a certain kind of music and the description of the voice doesn't go with this music. So I can speak to my producer, who then can speak to the writer and tell them my concern. So you'll get clearer direction, but you don't get that when a casting director is not being used. So sometimes people totally give me different reads than my direction, and I'm not interested. I'll be like, goodbye. I'm not interested in that. But if you're lucky enough to get a storyboard, and this is good for me to show everyone, there's a lot of hints. Here's your voiceover tips along with the chat. So for instance, this storyboard, not only does it show what you're saying, but it shows you visuals, and it tells you what the supers are.
Right.
And your child, our promise. So just say they said it's a hospital and they take care of sick children, okay? So if you can read the storyboard, you can see that, and then you have to understand, like for hospitals, if you sound like something's wrong, then you're not branding the product the way they would want it. What they didn't tell you is add positiveness and some brightness, so you're the answer to the disease. You're not the sound of the disease. And you can see on this board, happy child, happy mother. So I would say you don't want to totally go against what your, I understand what you're saying. You keep hearing the same thing. I think what you're saying is, how do I make it different?
Well, more of like more along the lines of when they're asking for non-announcery, you know, I think especially in my age range, they just want like a cool, regular sounding guy. We don't want a VO person, you know?
Don't do that. You are distinct. You are different than everyone else. Trust that. Connect with the copy. Connect with it. Like if it's an independent kind of, if the product is representing, like I was casting for a bank, and my description was bring in voices that sound independent,
right.
like small businesses. They don't follow, they couldn't get along in corporate. So as an actor, a voice actor, you have to feel independent when you're saying it, and then you have to trust that it will come through. Jeffrey, do you have any?
Can I add?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to point, Nick, I wanted to point you back to the first thing Terry blessed us with when she opened it, that commercial. How unusual that voice was, and that did not come, I would guess that was not in the specs, that, you know, they described that voice. She was authentic as the day is long, and you will be too. You don't ever want to, you know, contradict specs on purpose or out of any kind of like, I'll show them or whatever. And sometimes they have to just issue some kind of specs, and they don't want a 1970s announcer, but they really don't have to say that anymore. They're looking for you to be something different than what they just heard in the take before and what Terry's submitting after. And they are looking for Nick Schreiner. And that's got to be you being authentic. So the specs are a starting point, but they're not the law. And if it is vague like that, nothing announcery or don't push it, think of what Terry played for us, and that individualness and that authenticity and the story, and nothing came out better than that story. And I know it had a lot of us weeping, you know, just that was 15 seconds of what she showed us. That's powerful, and that's what you need to be auditioning with. And your other question about demo material, you know, if you're starting out, you will start off with demo material. And that stuff that is, you know, handcrafted for you, that you make up, or you're a great demo engineer or producer helps you develop. I have a talent that has everything on his reel is everything he's booked, and he's managed to get, luckily enough, you know, audio from. And that gets updated because it's for a hotel chain that's not actively advertising now. So that ages his demo. So he will replace that with something that he recently booked. So your demo will evolve with bookings, as long as the bookings you did, I mean, you can book something and it's not a great spot, so you don't necessarily just put it up because it's new. I mean, it would have been something you did poorly on VO, but the spot just could be bad or distasteful or whatever it might be. So you would be judged, you know, you're judging your demo as a whole, and you want your first 3 spots of a demo to be the most watchable or the most trendy or the best, because, you know, oftentimes Terry has a good ear. Terry will be able to listen to the first 3 and know that she's got a talent there and someone she wants to look further at, but she might not listen to the entire minute, because that's a lot of time if you do that multiple times a day. Hope that helps.
And are you using demos to pitch your, to pitch your clients regularly, or is it typically based on their auditions?
It's mostly scripted auditions, but we do get asked for demos first by a lot of people that are, you know, would rather us give them our top 5. And if it's not a demo, we select recent auditions that are really closer to the specs they're looking for, because a lot of people, for various reasons, need to hide things on their demo. They need to hide accents or need to hide whatever. So demos aren't always the only thing we have in our tool belt. We can save the audio files from auditions that we previously had, and we would submit a take or an audio file and explain, this is, you know, we can submit their demo to you, which we have, but this take is more in line with your specs, and we think this is closer to what you're looking for. And someone like Terry, who is busy, would appreciate perhaps us giving both options, but sort of honing it in so that she has less to do to actually find what she's looking for. And that's the partnership and the whole coordination of the whole spinning wheel between talent and representative, or talent strictly directly right to casting, you know, like Terry.
So we have time for one more question because Jeffrey's a working agent. Julie Simpson.
Oh,
Do you want to unmute yourself?
Got to unmute myself. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
First of all, thank you for doing this. I'm a newbie. Actually, I was in the business several years ago, raised a family, and now I'm trying to get back in. And my question is back to the demo reel. You answered a few of those questions, but as a newbie and you're gathering scripts for your demo reel, what's the best way to do that? Do you do that in class as you go along and find something that you feel you can do and put that in your pocket and use that for your demo reel, or is that something that the agent helps you with, or the person that's putting your demo reel together?
The person go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, sorry, Terry.
No, go ahead.
I think all of that is good. You know, a good demo producer, sometimes a lot of them will sit down and actually compose or write copy just for you. Another thing that you can do on your own is listen to the commercials instead of fast forwarding through them at night, and discovering what is trendy and what is being advertised right now. And you can, I don't know, I've had a lot of demos that have spots for, let's say, Publix grocery store that I know I've actually booked, and yet it's on someone's demo reel. So I'm fed automatically information subconsciously that is demo material, and they didn't actually book it. And so I think original material is good, and your producer can help you with that, or you can self-write if it's good. And from classes, sometimes you can change names of products if it's still current. What do you think, Terry?
Well, I know a lot of people, I won't use current scripts. And by the way, when you're putting together your reel, who's ever producing your reel should not be using a current script, because you could get into legal trouble. And also, you don't want to be up against, you know, that person who booked it did it very, very well, and that spot is known kind of in that little world for that voice. So you don't want to do a script that's very well known or recognized. I know in our advanced branding and demo prep, a lot of people end up using a lot of the scripts, some of the scripts that I've given them. And if that's not the case, the person who is prepping your demo, see, the person has to know you who's doing your demo. They have to have a discussion with you. They should be choosing the copy for you and directing you.
Okay.
So you can choose your own for sure and go over it, but the person who's doing your it's very, 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 very expensive to go into a studio, and there's an engineer. So you need to be prepped beforehand, not when you're paying for a studio.
Well, I'm not there yet. This is all because I'm still studying, I'm still learning. So I wanted to know, should I be, you know, taking these scripts and putting them aside and waiting and that kind of thing.
Of course, if you're studying and you're discovering a script that's really good for you with who you're studying with, yes, start putting those aside. Start collecting them.
Well, I know I liked your core basic intensive. It was a very good class. Learned a lot.
Yeah, and for anyone who does want to start, it is this Saturday. There's like 4 spots left, and we're
very good
online the whole day. And you can go to terryberlandworkshops.com and you can find it. It's called the Core Basic Kickstart. It's a kickstart, and it really does get you started.
Yep.
So let's all get off of mute and thank Jeffrey very much. And then Jeffrey will leave and we'll see you in a moment.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, thanks, Terry.
Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Jeffrey,
do well.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Jeffrey.
Gracias.
Thanks, Jeffrey. You the man, Jeff. You the man. You the man.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. We appreciate your.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is so great. You're generous with such great information.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be with you, Terry. I'm delighted about the number of people here. This is great to be with you guys. We are a community, as Terry says. And thanks for giving back to it, Terry. You're invaluable to us all.
Welcome. And
Right, well,
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, Jeffrey.
Bye. Thank you.
If I didn't get to a question you have, you can email me at info@berlandcasting.com. Okay, and you can email me your questions. All right, bye, guys. Have a great time. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Terry.
Thank you.
very much for all your time and all your help and tips.
Welcome. Hi, Rachel.
Yeah, it's awesome that you continue to do this. Thank you, Terry.
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to do this every once in a while when so great. So we do learn things. We discover new ways of doing things. Bye, guys. Stay well.
Bye-bye.